it seems, working from home, and
Oh,
I told my boyfriend to get the baby out of the bath while I'm in the meeting here. Oh, we're
yeah.
live.
We're
How come?
live.
How come every single time
Hi
I try?
guys.
Hey,
How come every single
hey.
time we do one of these, literally, my phone starts ringing and ringing and ringing. Like everyone just needs to leave me alone when I'm
It's
talking.
just your luck.
That's actually a good. I'm gonna try to mute my phone while we're doing this since I'm on mobile today.
Like everyone's like, "Oh, Christian has
Do not
Taco Tuesday.
disturb.
We're gonna call him and text him and call the office
Boom.
and everything else in between."
So are we officially live?
Yes, we are.
Sweet. Medicare Mentors, what is up? It's another Taco Tuesday. Special guest today, Joanna Wyckoff. You know her as Vice President of Nation Care Services. I have a special taco today. I call this the American taco, you guys.
Ooh,
Just wait. Just wait till you see this. The
anticipation.
Ooh,
That's the
Ooh.
American
that looks like a
taco.
hamburger.
That is a
It
hamburger.
is.
That's why it's the American.
Yeah, it's the American taco, as I call it.
So
What do you got, Christian?
You guys, I think we need to start this Taco Tuesday off by acknowledging we have vice presidential presence on this Zoom with
welcome.
us here today.
We do.
You guys
And,
are so silly.
And I mean, if you haven't given Joanna a huge applause for the change in status, shame on
Thank
you. Congratulations. Thank you for
I'm
being
jealous.
on Taco Tuesday.
I'm most jealous of Joe, if I'm being honest. Joe, I hope you're watching this. I'm jealous that Joanna's working for Joe and not working for me because
Well,
I would
lead
love
time-
Likewise.
If Lead Heroes has an offer,
Highest bidder.
Probably, I guess, my title is president, so I guess there could be a vice president role. I don't know. That might have to be off air. We'll have to talk about that.
So technically, if you look at my corporation and the articles of incorporation of Christian Brindle Insurance Services, technically speaking, the vice president is my wife. So can't really have another vice president, you know?
You can have multiple VPs. Come on. What are you talking
That's
about?
anarchy. That's anarchy, multiple VP. It's like the
The
title
next-
doesn't mean anything at that point.
You're right.
So since we're in a new group, I think we should mention, so Taco Tuesday, this is kind of there's no structure to this beyond talking about tacos typically and insurance. And that's really what this whole segment is about. So if you're in Medicare Mentors and you're like, what is this? What is going on? Typically we'll stream this in Six Figure Medicare Agent, which is Christian Brindle's group. But yes, since we have Joanna here, we really wanted to get this out to you guys here in Medicare Mentors and kind of chat about all things. Yeah. Appreciate the invitation.
I don't have any tacos. Nobody ordered me food today yet.
How could you?
I guess I'll get my taco on the way to the store after we're done.
So
You have to at least post a picture.
I do have tacos. And I will show them in a moment here. I'm just letting all of, my community know where this is taking place.
Because they expect us to be in your group.
I know my DMs will blow up and they'll be like, "Where's Taco Tuesday?" I'm like, "Wrong group. We changed groups." Okay. So today I have fish tacos.
Fish tacos.
Oh,
I went
what
a
type
little
of fish?
exotic. And
Joe-
they always give me the
Joe
limes,
exotic.
but I don't feel like I need them.
So what do you put on your fish taco?
So you put on lime, typically, but I don't
Okay.
really feel like I need it, but I'm going to use it anyway. You have tomatoes. You have special sauce. Looks like you might have even a little tartar sauce in there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting deep.
What kind of fish do they use? Is it like a
Salmon?
halibut?
Tilapia.
Yeah, halibut was going to be my guess.
Probably
Okay.
halibut. Mm.
I think he has wings over here for me. Have not eaten
Oh.
yet.
You guys may have noticed that this week Glenn is out of his workspace.
Man, I had to jailbreak quarantine this week, you guys. I felt like an animal in a cage. I will say it's gotten better. I feel like when quarantine first started, and again, I'm still trying to actively not leave my house as much as possible, just because I feel like that benefits everybody. And I feel like, and maybe some of you can relate to this. If you are trying to quarantine, I feel you. But it's like after a week or so, like if I'm home like a week straight, which I'd say there's been many times over the past several months where I have been home for a week straight, I just start to go crazy. So I am out and about. I'm actually at the river today.
Nice.
Hence my casual attire. I'm in my vehicle. But yeah, it's been very nice to get out, stretch my legs, get some fresh air. Hopefully all of you at home are staying sane as well.
So Glenn, are you solo on this trip to the river?
I'm not. I actually have my family and my in-laws as well are at the river.
Oh, okay. So thank you for taking a break from them to hang out with us tonight.
So did you have to tell your in-laws, be like, hey, I know we're doing this thing together, this family time, but I have this really important thing. They're like, oh, what is it? What do you have to do?
Well, you can probably guess what my wife's opinion was when I said, hey, I've got to go. She's like, that taco video? You can't take a break from that taco video? I'm like, hey, consistency. It's important. Come on. I feel like the next week she'll be like in labor and I'm going to be just chilling. I'll be like, hey, what's up, guys?
Is your wife having a girl or a boy?
It's a boy. It is.
Oh.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Congrats.
We're really excited.
I didn't know we were that close.
We're very close. We're at the 5-yard line. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, even if she's in labor, I still expect you to be here tacoing it up with me next Tuesday.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to not miss.
From the delivery room.
Yeah.
In the delivery room.
Yeah. If this doesn't already prove my diligence and my loyalty to you and to the show, you guys, I hope that this is just the first of many going forward. One question I do to kind of transition this to insurance to give you guys some relevance here. So we had a happy hour last Friday, which I thought was awesome for those of you who were on there. I know, Joanna, you were, Christian, and many others. But one thing that came up that was kind of a hot subject was telesales versus face-to-face sales. And I'm not talking about pandemic related, like you can't do it or you shouldn't do it. And I'm just saying in general, assuming there was no pandemic, and you could sell face-to-face or you could sell over the phone, and it was kind of a hot button subject, and I would love to kind of continue that conversation some more. What do you think, Christian?
That.
Yeah, it was right after you got off, unfortunately.
Right after, so
yeah.
So
obviously, go ahead.
I'm actually fairly new to the remote sales, telephonic sales platform, thanks to my partnership with Joe Tritola and NationCare. But NationCare is not new. They've been doing remote sales for years. Joe has never gone to a house to sell a Medicare plan.
Never, ever?
No, I don't think he's ever pounded the pavement. Now he has done face-to-face for annuities and life insurance and stuff. I mean, he's been in the financial industry for over 20 years, and I just aged him. But if he'll go pick up an annuity check, but he's not leaving his house for $255. So Joe, before technology came out and everything, before Sunfire, before Medicare Center, Joe had an old school way of doing it, and sometimes it involved the United States Post Office Service. Yeah. And so Joe taught me his old school way back before we started using Medicare Center. And now that I support, I think we're up to 7 call centers now in our distribution line. And one brand new one is coming. But with those, a lot of agents in the groups trash call centers. and I might have said something in my past about it.
Let's
dig it.
We need to look. Yeah, we need to look at Joanna's feed. Let's see.
Yeah, I think there's a big misconception though, because after I went down and sat in our Boynton Beach call center for a week in January, my eyes were enlightened. I saw we have down in Boynton Beach office, we have a nice agent. Her name is Diane, and I was watching her process. Diane doesn't take any shortcuts, and I think that's the field agents think that call centers are wham bam, thank you ma'am, not going to check your doctors, not going to check your meds. I'm just flipping you to what I can. And I think that's the common misconception of what field agents think telephonic agents do. But that's not the case in our distribution. You know what I'm saying? Because I've been in enough of them now, where they're looking up the drugs just the same. They're looking at the doctors just the same. They're making sure that they're putting someone in a better position.
I cannot dab. Sorry, continue.
Than when they found them, right?
Right.
And so not all call centers function the same way, but I think it's unfair to assume that every call center is, oh, what are you in, Mr. Brindle? You're in Humana? Well, I'm selling you Anthem today. Not everyone is like that. Oh, you have drugs? We're not checking those. No, we don't do that here. They're not like
Call someone else.
Right.
I mean, the bat. So, like, to kind of jump off that point. So, like, I totally agree with you. There's some really great telephonic agencies out there and individual reps who really dot their I's and cross their T's, who arguably do a better job than face-to-face agents when taking care of the client. But the problem is there's some bad apples out there who have really kind of created, I guess, this generalization, right, of telephonic agents, of these call centers that are like policy mills, and they don't care, and they're just pumping out policies, and they don't care if their persistency is 70%. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it really comes down to the individual agent. And I think, like you said, I think you really have to see it happening to understand it. I think if you're from the outside looking in, I think a lot of people just don't get it.
So a couple things. There are good and bad to anything, whether it be field agents, telephone agents, call center agents. It doesn't really matter. There's going to be, there's certainly, I think we can all agree, there's plenty of agents that give face-to-face agents a bad name. I think you're going to find that no matter what you run into. And I think that's a great point in terms of, just because one call center operates in terms of, don't check doctors, don't check prescriptions, just throw them on a plan. We would prefer Humana, or whoever, or whatever they're trying to sell that day or that month or whatever. Doesn't mean they're all like that. And back to rewind back to your point, Joanna, when I even started in 2014, there were not even close to as many enrollment tools to do telephone sales as there are today. There weren't as many e-apps. We had some, but there weren't as many. And there were a lot of carriers that we had to do snail mail still, like if we were doing an application for somebody and we didn't want to meet with them face to face, we had to send it to them in the mail, and we had to basically send them the whole app. And we had these little stickers that we'd put on the app that says sign here, do not date kind of thing,
Yep.
And I think it's really interesting to kind of see how that's evolved. But yeah, I can only imagine what it was like with Joe when he started for the phone sales.
We'll have to get him on the next Taco Tuesday.
We do need to get Joe on here.
He's always welcome.
Yeah, we can hear what it was like, hiking up the mountain both ways. And but I had to do a snail mail during the first week of quarantine back in March. I had to send something by snail mail for someone who needed a United Healthcare C-SNP, and I felt Joe's pain. I was putting my stickies, I had already presented the plan. She just didn't want it when I showed it to her, and then she called me back. I was like, that plan? I want that one. But technology has evolved so rapidly in the last 90 days, thanks to this horrible disease that has taken over the country. And unfortunately, several of my agents have been affected. they've lost their family members and stuff. But the carriers really came into 2020 like rapidly during the shutdown, you know. I mean, even WellCare was like, the WellCare did not allow you to sell their MAPD remotely until Joe Chitola emailed them and like, why can I sell a PDP remotely but not an MAPD? And they changed their position, and they created a tool to do so, you know. And with the voice scopes and everything that all the carriers came out with, I was really proud of them, you know.
Yeah, that's huge. And again, I've talked about this so many times before, but these insurance carriers, these insurance companies are dinosaurs. You know, they've been using fax machines for the past 100 years. You know, whenever fax machines were invented, it's like that was the technology they grabbed onto. And I remember, again, when I came into the industry almost 10 years ago, and being surprised that I was being taught essentially how to use a fax machine, because I didn't know how to use a fax machine. You know, it's like 2010, 2011. I'm like, I'm used to, you know, uploading or emailing. Like, using a fax machine was the last form of technology that I was familiar with. So I do think that's been a huge benefit.
Right.
But, you know, my argument about telesales is when it comes to objectively looking at the numbers, when you look at how many presentations you can make in a day, face-to-face versus selling over the phone, it's just hard to even compete. And that was my argument on the virtual cocktail last week, is I was just saying, I'm like, you know, I get it. I'm a face-to-face agent at heart. That's what I spent the majority of my time in the field doing. And I've also sold policies over the phone, so I do get it both ways. And it's not really like it's an apple versus an orange. It's not really the same exact thing. And some people are good at one and some people are good at the other. But at the end of the day, if I can make 20 presentations talking to people over the phone for 5 hours versus driving around, and I'm lucky to make 4 presentations, it's hard to lose. The other point that I thought was interesting that kept getting brought up, and this wasn't by me, but actually I think, Joanna, you actually brought it up maybe when we chatted the other day. You know, when you're talking about like your car insurance, right? Like, when was the last time you sat down with a car insurance agent face to face? Like, never, right? Like,
Never.
I can't tell you. Yeah, I mean,
Never.
I've had car insurance for, you know, forever. I've never sat down with a car insurance agent ever. It's
One of the
crazy.
arguments. One of the arguments that I noticed that came up on the cocktail hour, well, multiple hours last Friday night, was you know, they said that, you know, I'm not going to be one of those agents that just never sees that person again, which, you know, in her mind, and I think in some people's minds that, you know, demonize telesales, they have it in their mind to where every agent that's selling over the phone, you know, they're basically, you know,
Oh, okay. So thank you.
if you will.
Hang on, Joanna wanted to get in on this. She's watching it live.
I was trying to answer a question and it turned on my phone. Sorry.
No, hey, anybody who has questions, please comment below the video and we'll definitely jump in, whether it's right now or after we're done streaming here. I love getting questions, anything about anything we're speaking about or something different. You know, I'm sure between the 3 of us, hopefully we can give you some form of answer.
I'd hope so.
So tell me about the demonization.
Oh, so anyway, so, you know, it came across to me like, you know, there was a misconstrued stereotype in her head right off the bat that anybody that sells over the phone doesn't service their clients, which to me, my first reaction of it, and of course, you know, it was cocktail hour. I think we'd all been drinking a little bit, especially Tony Merwin. No, I had to. But anyway, my first reaction was like, you know, we spend an enormous amount of time and money and resources servicing our clients, you know, even ones I've never met before that are a couple states over or on the other side of the country from me in person. I mean, we work really hard at it, you know, so I kind of took that a little personal. Not that we don't do face-to-face, because we do that as well, but we do a fair amount of telesales at this point. And I think that it doesn't matter if you're face-to-face, doesn't matter if you're telesales. It doesn't matter how you're getting the policy or how you're getting the sale. You can do everything exactly the same way that you do face-to-face over the phone. It's just a matter if you do it or not.
Yep.
I actually like remote sales a little bit better now that I'm comfortable doing it and everything, because if I don't have an immediate answer, I could say, hey, let me call you back in 10 minutes. I'm going to call Humana or Anthem or whatever and get you that answer. And they're not just staring at me going, you know. so I kind of like that. I mean, I have clients around the country. I have clients in New York and Las Vegas. Hey, honey. I have clients in. I'm on TV.
I'm on TV.
We're talking about insurance, but I have clients in Las Vegas.
And then it was just me and Glenn.
Just the two of us.
She's new to the Taco Tuesday.
we didn't know we had 4 guests.
Yeah. So I have clients in New York and Nevada and Louisiana and Florida from this past week. You know what I'm saying? So 4 states. Yep. I would never have met these clients before. And one of the clients in New York was a very complicated case where she was on a PPO, but she was really needing a med sup before 8-1, or I'm sorry, this was 7-1, because she was in skilled nursing and she was running out of the days of skilled nursing on a PPO. You know, they only pay for the first 20, right? And then it goes to what, $178 a day?
160, 170, depending on the area.
Like that.
Yeah.
So a Florida agent referred her to me for New York, and I was able to get her in New York. Med sups are a GI state. So I was able to get her over to PDP with some fancy footwork and a med sup. and her family loves me because I saved them $5,000 MOOP, you know, because she was going to meet the MOOP being in residence for the month of July. So, I mean, I think I spent, you know, more time than 30 minutes in a house on her. I mean, I think I spent like 3 hours on that case, you know, just calling back and forth. And I had conversations with the skilled nursing facility. We had conversations with the elder care attorney. I helped them file, you know, for Medicaid and everything. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do that in a face-to-face setting. I would have been like, that would have been my entire day, right? But because I was doing it remotely, I could have broken that up into different segments. So I think people are they just don't know. Unless you do a remote sale, you just don't know. You know, I think I take the same amount of care and time remotely, and my clients still call me, hey, Joanna, you remember you tell me this, you know, so-and-so, and I don't have to drive out there just to look. Today I had a referral come in from one of my personal care homes, and I talked to the power of attorney, and I'm thankful that I didn't drive out there, even though she is local to me. She's in the same county as me. But it turns out that the resident has a med sup with United Healthcare, and she has Parkinson's. And somebody had mentioned to her that maybe an Advantage plan would have been better. And, you know, when I did my analysis, first I found out she doesn't have a special enrollment period. So I would have not been able to write anything today, right? And then I'm not taking someone with Parkinson's off of a med sup unless they're like going on to Medicaid, you know?
Yeah.
So I just did a quick 15-minute consultation and told her, you know, what we're looking for and why the med sup is the most important thing to keep her on, and did some education. And she'll probably let me do her PDP come open enrollment, you know, and she'll probably send me more business, right?
Yeah, referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I can do that remotely without wasting 20 minutes drive to her house, sitting there, you know, for 30 minutes or whatever, just to find out that I'm not doing anything, and driving, you know, another 20 minutes to my next appointment. So I think it's a win-win. Yeah, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think something that came up on the cocktail party as well last Friday was how many more people can you talk to if you're not driving to each and every one of them? It's like infinitely more, or, it's like not even a conversation to have. But I think some people are really stuck in their ways, and it's not like it's not a bad thing if you're a face-to-face agent, no big deal, but there is a cap on how much prospecting you can do. And I don't think there's any way you can refute that.
100%. Now, in defense of the face-to-face agent is, again, if you're, and like I kind of mentioned earlier, it's like comparing apples to oranges, right? It's completely different. And I have seen some of the best face-to-face agents, literally and on the final expense side, to give you an example, I know personally at the time, it was one of the highest producing individual final expense agents in the entire United States, wrote more than $500,000 in premium on his own pen. And that person was convinced that he could transition to selling over the phone. And he didn't make that transition successfully. He ended up staying in the field. And so again, it's one of those things where, like, you have to realize it's a different skill set. There's different tools involved. It's a bit of a different process. It's not necessarily going to be for every agent. So, to kind of play devil's advocate here, if you're not a telesales agent or you struggle selling insurance that way, then absolutely, you need to do what works best for you. But at the same time, the term "follow the money" was brought up on the cocktail party last week.
Yeah.
Apparently, yeah. I guess that's a male thing. I guess it's only men that follow the money. That's what was mentioned. But I look at things, just try to be, just being super objective, looking at just the numbers, and it's the law of large numbers. Christian, I know you just put out a volume video. The insurance business is volume first, which I love. I love that. But if you can make more, if you can talk to more people, if you can make more presentations, if you're going to quote more people, you're going to make more money, period. That's it. It's really that simple.
Agreed. 100%. Like, I mean, I think, like I love reading books, even though Glenn doesn't think I do, but, but
your fake bookshelf behind you. Are
my
you going to read
bookshelf
again?
Yeah. So I'm looking for a book. I'm looking at a book, and Glenn's like, I think it's funny. I think it's cute how you pretend to read all those. I'm like, no, but anyway, I read a book. I can't remember if it was by Zig Ziglar or Jim Rohn. I can't remember, but a couple of years ago, I read a book by one of those two, and they talked about how, you could be the best salesperson in the world, and I could be the worst salesperson in the world. But if you talk to 10 people and I talk to 100, I'm going to beat you.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
That's this industry in a nutshell. I can't tell you how many agents I've seen who are work ethic. 100%. 100%.
I agree. I'm still a field agent at heart. I do like to pound the pavement. And my actual favorite, a lot of people don't even know this, is I started doing sales at a kiosk inside of a Walmart, but I was so scared of the phone. You couldn't get me on the phone back in 2018. If you handed me a phone, I would have been like, so I'm not dialing.
I remember you posting about that.
Is this for texting?
I thought you weren't you in a car? Like, you got like no showed and you were like in your car and you started just calling and you're like, guys, I figured it out.
Yeah.
Tell us the story.
Well, that's happened several times, but like I had gotten no-showed like an entire day, and I thought I was really gonna hit like 5 home runs that day. I had like an appointment every hour,
right.
And I was like, I pulled out my stack of leads. I just started calling for the next day, and then I was like, I like to go see people. I still think I'm better in presentations and seminars and stuff because I can answer someone's specific question versus, hey, Glenn, this is Joanna, and you sent me a lead,
Right.
People, especially like when you see someone, you see that Christian isn't so scary. He's not the person that you think is calling you from Pakistan to sell you a car warranty,
That sounds like me. That sounds like me.
But I think I just had the misconception because I wasn't trained properly in the beginning on how to dial and how to do set my appointments and stuff, that it was a fear factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it took me the longest time to get over it. And now it's not so scary. It's still a little scary, not so scary. But yeah, I mean, I still love doing presentations at retail stores and, seminars and stuff. I'm actually speaking for Georgia Health Writers Association in a couple weeks, and that's going to be my first public speaking event and everything. But I think it's a little easier when you see someone to read their body language, because like I've always interviewed at Social Security. I interviewed both telephonically and face to face, but I can read body language a lot better, watching your eyes and stuff. And if I'm asking you a question, if you're not telling me the truth, I can see in your eyes.
So can I say one thing about, for anybody that's having fear over the phone, there is one way to shock your system and basically cure it. In my opinion.
We have 100% cure rate coming from Christian Brindle.
100% cure rate. 100% cure rate. Spend 6 months cold calling, turning 65 lists. You'll never be scared to pick up the phone again.
And in my opinion, this is what made Joe so successful. I know Joe did a bunch of cold calling himself. And whenever I'm working with someone on the lead side, any agent who's done that, they are definitely, there's a polish that happens. I think I can't necessarily explain like why it is the cure that it is, but it just seems like everything is going, any type of lead you work, no matter where it comes from, it will never be as rough as just pounding the phone like that. I mean, again, you're really taking coal and you're making a diamond if you can be successful like that.
So I
Shout
remember
out to you, Joe.
I remember, when I was still getting to know Joanna a little bit, we were still getting to know each other. Like we were talking a little bit, and I told her, I'm like, my first 3 years of my business, maybe 4, I don't even know, I almost got exclusively my new business from cold calling. And I still remember her reaction. She was like, whoa. She's like, damn. She's like, that's brutal. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, but I think it was Tracy that said this on the cocktail party last week. Somebody brought up some tips for a new agent that was on there. And I think, he brought up a point that I didn't think of, but reflecting on it, I think he was 100% spot on. I think if you start out cold calling, you're going to be just real polished, like Glenn said, on the phone in terms of dialing leads. Like, I feel like if I didn't start out doing that way, I don't think I'd be able to do what I can do now dialing leads.
I thought your cure was going to be like an ice bucket. I thought it was like shock. You said shock your system. And so I was like, what? Like you got to like jam your hand in an ice bucket. You like shock your system and then you pick up the phone, you start dialing. It's tough. It is tough. And for me, so it wasn't really cold calling per se for me, but when I first got in the industry, I was selling mortgage protection life insurance, and the agency I was working with, they were giving me leads that were very old. and so, I mean, it might as well have been cold calling at that point. And it's a repetition thing. It's really just, 10,000 hours, right, to become an expert. So I just think you just start to become really familiar if you keep doing it over and over and over. Oh, here we go. So how many pages did you get into this one?
The first 10 or 20 or so. No,
I knew that was coming.
This is the book where this is the 10,000 hour book.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah. 10,000 hours to be an expert. Boom. Read it, study it, master it. It's tough. It's not easy, but Tony, and in the words of Tony Merwin from last week, he's like, what's the worst that can happen? They're going to hang up on you. Yeah, I mean, more or less, right? I mean, more or
Tony,
less, yeah.
Tony,
Tony,
I mean, Tony was the most blunt about it.
I mean,
Like,
yeah, worst case scenario, F you, and they hang up the phone. That's like the worst case scenario when you're calling, you know?
I think Tony said, forgive me for saying this, Tony, if you're watching. I think he said he's like buck up, Buttercup.
Yeah, buckle up. Yeah, it was either buck up or buckle up. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
So,
those things over time, you just don't really feel them as much. You know, you kind of get numb to it.
you have to. And I'm learning to take what I learned when I was working for the government. I called, and people are not so nice to government employees sometimes. Like, it's not personal. And I think we were talking about this. I was talking about it with someone. It's not personal, you know? Yeah. And so whoever they're cursing out on the phone, it's not personal. They're not cursing out, Glenn or Joanna. They're cursing out the person who they don't feel like being bothered on the phone, And so I stopped taking it personal. I stopped crying, like, she just called me a bitch. I was like, I'm not a bitch. I'm the nicest person you'll ever meet,
Yeah. No, that's great advice. That's really, really good advice. I think that is a barrier for a lot of people is they'll take it all straight to the heart. You got to have thicker skin for sure.
So I'm reading the comments real quick. I just glanced at them, and Scotty just dropped a comment that said, "I'm ready for Tony to publish a daily inspirational calendar."
I think Tony could do a calendar. I could see.
I would
Tony,
buy it.
He needs a quarantine calendar. I could just see Tony doing some Texas positions.
Beef by Tony.
Smoking. He's cutting his brisket. He's got his gun.
And he's wearing those jean overalls with no shirt underneath.
Oh, Tony's gonna crucify you when this is over.
I
Hopefully you don't have any contracts with Tony.
I laughed so hard, like on the inside. It was like I was fighting every inch of myself not to just burst out in laughter when he said that on the Zoom. I was like, I can't believe he said that. But I felt bad afterward because I felt like maybe we were a little harsh. I don't know about you, Glenn, but I think me and Tony were definitely drinking pretty heavily.
Well, I
what
think
were you
more.
harsh about?
I think here's the thing. It wasn't so much that I think any person was harsh when we were debating telesales versus face-to-face. It was just that collectively, you had almost everybody had the viewpoint that telesales was more efficient. I mean, Tracy was involved too. Like, all of us were explaining why we thought telesales was better. And then you only had really one person out of like 6 people that was trying to argue for face-to-face. So I think it kind of seemed like they were being bullied. It wasn't that, again, it wasn't that we were like trying to be mean. It was just, there were a lot of people arguing for one side. And I think that was kind of the part.
I think it just comes down to skill and the skill of your mentor, right? I mean, because I've met people who said that they did 3 sales this week, and I'm like, I can do more than that in a day of telesales. Not telesales, but field, Like, if the stars align right, and I make sure everyone's qualified before I go. But telesales it certainly saved me from disaster during, quarantine. A lot of my agents flourished and everything. So why not? We can't leave the house. We don't want to put our 80-year-olds on oxygen at risk. They don't want to see you. Why not?
And again, car insurance. I love that analogy because it's like, whoever sits down with a car insurance agent? Like, nobody does. And why would your Medicare supplement policy be any different? Why can't that be done over the phone? It obviously can. And so I think
med stuff is easier.
Yeah, I think it's a mental barrier for a lot of agents. I really do. I think you just have to kind of, and I mentioned, or someone else, I thought it was me, but I mentioned burning the boats. And sometimes that's kind of the way you got to look at it, right? Like, you can't go back. You're doing it this way. And I think a lot of times committing like that can help an agent if you're new to telesales.
So, I mean, I think a lot of it is just agents kind of getting out of their own head about it. I really do think that. I think they have this, preconceived, idea that the client's not going to want to talk to them, or they're like, oh, they can hang up at any second. When I'm in the house, they can't kick me out at any second. I'm like, well, they can. It's just harder. But they still can if you piss them off enough,
Do you think it's actually, Christian, do you think it's actually a lead problem for agents who are being so resistant about doing telephonic remote work because they don't have leads to call, versus they think that they can stand on the corner of CVS and get people to talk to them without buying anything? Like, do you think
I think it depends on the agent specifically. Like, I think, like, for me personally, I've never been a huge fan of the booths and all that stuff. I've done them. I don't know. I felt like the farther I went on in my career, the more busy I was and the less I could sacrifice in terms of committing to sitting at a booth, for like 4 or 5 hours or something like that. And so I think for booth agents, it could be the convenience of just, putting themselves out there and then the interested people can approach them or something like that. I think, but if it's an agent that maybe just, orders, let's say, direct mail, and they're door knocking the direct mail leads, I think for that person, I think they're just thinking that it's just going to be a huge drop off if instead of door knocking the direct mail leads, you pick up the phone and call them. I think it's something up here. I think it's just a shift that is difficult for a lot of agents to make. That's kind of my thought process.
Well, here's an anecdotal story from this week, right? So, obviously our leads don't necessarily work for every agent, and I get that. But this week specifically, I had an agent that I believe was new to the industry. It sounded like he came from a car dealership. Obviously, car dealerships probably really hard hit right now when it comes to sales. I imagine probably not a lot of cars moving off the lot right now. So, he got through about 50 leads and he calls me up and he had a list of excuses, right? It was, well, this and this and this. And I, at some point, if you give the same leads to 2 agents and one agent can figure it out and convert and the other one can't, I do think a lot of it's just what's between the ears. I think it's a mindset game. And to go back to the person I was talking about earlier, I'm not going to say their name, but that final expense agent who wrote the most in the country that year that I'm aware of, it was like over $500,000 in premium on his own pen, face to face. When I talked to him and I was like, how did you do this? How did you go from a mediocre agent to writing the most final expense premium in the country? And it was all, he started with mental programming. He really started with, and I can't remember the exact, like what it was, but it was mental programming where he was really, it's about programming yourself to be confident, to know what you're doing is the right thing that you're doing. And kind of like, professional athletes, right? I mean, you're visualizing it, you're practicing it, you're recording yourself, you're getting better. There's a lot of things that I think in some ways are almost overly simplistic, but that most agents completely miss out on.
Yeah, I agree. And guys, to just put this out there, I think Tony's mad at me now.
Why?
So I apologize, Tony. Nothing bad was said. I just was reminiscing about.
It was reminiscent. Party. Hey, I stand by everything that was said. Like, again, it wasn't, I don't think it was that we were being mean. I just felt like a lot of people shared the belief that telesales was better than face-to-face.
Let me ask, was it an all-male environment or was it like 5 men to 1 woman?
3 females on the call at that time, okay. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think there were, at that point in time, I think there was like 10 to 13 people on maybe. And I don't even know if there were that many, but probably about 3, 4 females and the rest were guys.
Okay. Because sometimes y'all do get a little mean.
Christian. Christian.
No, I mean, I think a lot of us have very close relationships.
I felt guilty after.
I think I had this conversation with someone, but I think that some of us have very close relationships where I know Christian's tonality and what he's really trying to get to. And if you haven't been around, you might not know what a sweetheart he is, So
I think, well, and here's the other thing too, is like you'll have one agent who does it a certain way and they think that that's the only way to do it. And so you'll have someone who will stand behind what they do and they're like, look, I've got these results. But the reality is there's so many ways to skin this cat. There really is. You can do seminar selling. You can sell at the door face to face. You can sell over the phone. I mean, there's not one right way or one wrong way of doing this business. And I think that's what makes it so interesting too,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, I did face-to-face for the first, I don't think I really started really even incorporating telesales in until like 2018, maybe halfway through 2018. And then by then I was like doing a very small percentage. I mean, it's definitely, you can make a lot of money, being a face-to-face agent. You can do very well as a face-to-face agent. There's nothing wrong with being a face-to-face agent. What I think that there's the disconnect is when a face-to-face agent says that, there's a drop off in your quality of service. There's a drop off of this. There's a drop off of that. It's just silly to me. It's a silly argument to make, but, it is what it is. There's always going to be face-to-face agents and people that are really good at it and people that kill it with it. It's like Glenn said, there's multiple ways to grow business.
I actually work a lot easier and faster with my dual monitors at home on my nice leather seat than I do on my iPad in the field. I can look up 20 doctors at the same time, run meds and everything, and have an answer in minutes. So
I feel like that could be a snippet. Like that could be an ad right there. My dual monitors at home and my leather seat beats your iPad in the field. Boom. Yeah. Mic drop, Joanna.
Go ahead.
I just know the struggle of sitting on someone's, chair or couch and you're hoping that there's nothing on it. And you're trying to balance your iPad and they're handing you bottle after bottle,
Or black all these memories out. Stop.
How many times have you been in somebody's house and they don't have Wi-Fi? You're trying to connect your hotspot, but you have just the shittiest connection of all time. And you're just sitting there waiting for something to load on your Google Chrome or whatever.
Or you're out in the sticks. You got a lead that's out in the sticks in the middle of nowhere and there is no connection. There is no internet. I've been in that position too.
So one of my first sales back in 2016, I actually didn't make the sale. One of my first appointments back in 2016, I was an hour and a half above Atlanta. I had left Social Security. I was still full-time federal. I had left my job to go up to Canton, Georgia, and I was going to present an IUL. And my computer, my laptop, decided to do a complete reset, sitting there, and these people's 3 kids were staring at me. And I'm just sitting there, and I just shut it off after like an hour of just sitting there trying to make small talk because my computer was not having, it was like Windows reloading, And so I'm like, I'm sorry. And I felt like I just wasted my time. And then trying to get them back to let me come back was just like, but I was like, man, that really sucked. I drove a long ways and just for my laptop to act up,
Yeah.
So I got a story for you guys. So my first sale I ever made on my own without anybody going with me, 2014, I remember it very vividly. I sold an Equitable Plan F. And it was my first time I ever did an application by myself. I did the appointment by myself. It was my first sale on my own. I was like super pumped about it. It was like 45 minutes from the office. And so I'm driving back. I remember I picked up the phone. I called my dad, and I was like, I sold it. And he's like, oh, that's great. He's like, we'll have to frame it or something like that. He said something dumb like that. I don't remember what he said. So I drive all the way back. I get back and I show him the app. He takes one look at it and he's like, there's no banking information. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, what are you talking about? So I'm like panicking at this point because I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, so I call the lady back. She won't answer the phone. I'm just calling and calling and calling. She won't answer the phone. I ended up driving back there, and luckily she was home. I just drove back not knowing if she was home, and luckily she let me get it. But like, that was a ton of wasted time that that could have been avoided if it was over the phone. No big deal. But yeah, I mean, I can't think of how many times you forget something, or there's something wrong, or you have to get a new application, or whatever the case might be. And having to go back several times it's not easy. Not to mention the 2 or 3 step appointments.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. I was just thinking about my very first sale. It was a Marico 30-year non-med term. And I remember being in this guy's house. He was a construction worker. And I just remember being like, I was like shaky almost. I was like, so like we could do this, or this. I gave him the 3 options, 15, 20-year, 30-year term. And when he wouldn't, he wasn't stopping me. So I was like, okay. I'm like, I think we got this. And going through that, I remember that it's tough. It's so tough when you're first starting out. I really sympathize for new agents. You gotta just really mess up some applications. You do. You gotta just really destroy some applications to get to the point where you don't miss any signatures, you don't miss any boxes, and you got everything. Yes.
And you have to lose some sales.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's the best teacher. Like I told the story a couple Taco Tuesdays ago where I had someone call our office for returning a call from a cold call. How often does that happen? And it was the dumbest deal ever. She told our secretary at the time that God wanted her to work with me. She said that.
I love it.
And this was right before I made the first real sale, but I totally went on that appointment and I totally did not know my stuff. They wanted a certain carrier. My dad told me not to sell that carrier. So I was trying to talk crap about it or something and be like, oh, it has this. And everything I was saying, they were pulling out a booklet and showing me that it wasn't true. And they lost faith in me. And yeah, I just, it was the dumbest deal of ever. And I just completely whiffed on it. And I never made any of those mistakes again. I mean, it's a very, very powerful teacher, losing a couple sales over.
Well, we are coming up on the hour mark. So I want to give everyone kind of chance to share their final thoughts. Joanna, final thoughts on Taco Tuesday. What would you like to share here in Medicare Mentors with everybody?
If you've never been in a...
You went mute.
You muted yourself. No, you muted yourself.
I'm sorry. I'm here. If you've never seen remote sales done, I'm not even calling it call center now because Christian Brindle does remote sales from his home office and his brick and mortar office. I have a home office I do remote sales from. You don't have to be in a call center, but watch someone do it. Watch them go over to Justin Brock's office or whatever. Watch somebody do it. And they're not being unethical. They're doing the same thing you would do, probably a lot faster because they have all their technology at the same spot. And they can see, 6, 7, 8 people back to back to back, and without the stress of, oh my gosh, now I have to run 20 minutes to this person and traffic and everything. But just go hang out with someone who does remote sales and see and give it a fair shot. I don't think a lot of face-to-face agents give it a fair shot. They just say, well, I can't do that. And in the beginning of COVID, we had a lot of agents in the groups say, I'm not good at phones. I'm not good at it. I'm like, have you given it a shot? Because I said I wasn't good at dialing, and now they have me dialing, I mean, have you given it a shot, right?
Yep. I like it. Good advice. I like the mentor part too, or not even a mentor, just someone who will let you watch what they do. Exactly. I love that. Christian, final thoughts?
I would say that I would say don't take for granted. I'm going to piggyback a little bit off what Joanna said. I would say if you're a new agent and you're having trouble dialing, I mean, don't take for granted, having somebody that was willing to jump on the phone and dial with you. Like there's been tons of times this year during the pandemic, even where, I was working from home at that time. I wasn't even here at the office. And some of our new agents, were just having, trouble just kind of seeing how I do things. And you can only tell them a script so often, so many times, that's one thing hearing a script. It's another thing seeing you sell. And so there were times where I'd, get them on a Zoom with me. I'd mute them and I'd just have them watch me dial leads and kind of see how I'd handle it. And that kind of training alone can teach you a bunch, so I think Joanna's spot on. Just to kind of piggyback off of that, I'd say, if you're not watching somebody make a sale and you're really, really struggling, that might be something that can help you out a lot.
I love it.
Glenn,
I mean,
final thoughts?
I think my final thoughts, we spent a lot of time kind of talking about face-to-face versus telesales, and that's just one part of the industry, but there's so many, the industry can be fragmented in so many ways. There's agents out there who only sell Medicare Advantage, who don't sell Medicare Supplement. There's agents who will sell the PDP. There's agents who don't. There's agents who will cross-sell life insurance with their health insurance clients. There's agents who only do one or the other. And then, technology-wise, there's another more splinters here, right? You've got Sunfire versus Medicare Policy Center. Sorry, I got to call her for a second. You've got, CRMs. You've got a ton of different CRMs that people use. So, my final thoughts for you guys, don't necessarily believe or agree with everything that you hear or that other people are telling you. You need to find out what works best for you. And like Christian just said, even scripts, right? Even if someone hands you a script that says, say this is what I say, you have to really make that your own. And that's really how, in my opinion, almost the entire industry is. What works for Christian might not work for me, and what works for me might not work for Joanna, but it doesn't mean I'm right and Joanna's wrong, and it doesn't mean Christian's right and I'm wrong. You really have to figure out what works best for you.
Well said. I agree completely.
Awesome. Well, this was I love having Joanna on. Yeah, I know. I'm ready for another American taco.
This was American taco. This was a nice change of pace. Joanna, thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing Taco Tuesday to take place in your lovely group.
Thank you.
And we will have to do it again soon.
Yeah. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.